I think about the Marshall Fire, like, I think what's ingrained in my mind, is the Costco clip where people are
Mm,
in Costco and they're running through the parking lots and, like, smoke everywhere, the hillsides are on fire, like, it's and what's interesting is that when we're all watching that and people are watching the Palisades fire over in our neighborhood, people look at that and go, "Wow," like, I'm so glad that's not my place, right? Or, I don't see that happening in our city, and I think it gives us this false sense of security and thinking that, oh, just happens over there, or it happens over there, or only where there's wind, or only where there's a lot of vegetation, and how silly of people to put their homes in the hillside. Um, when the reality is like these wildfires travel so quickly,
mhm.
and when there is a wind event, you have the airplanes that aren't able to be up in the air because
Welcome to the All Things Wildfire podcast, where we delve into the latest trends and hot topics in protecting properties against wildfire. So sit back, relax, and join us as we arm you against disaster.
all right, everyone, welcome to another podcast with the All Things Wildfire. And today's did I just say guest? Today's guest, Jamie Barker, um, is from Colorado, and she is the Public Information Officer, PIO, for Fire Rescue. And Jamie, thank you for jumping on. I really do appreciate it. I know Boulder is also leading the charge. I feel similarly to California in being able to understand wildfire science and, more importantly, implement some of the things that need to be done to help homeowners become more wildfire safe, and also as a result become more insurable, hopefully. But Jamie, welcome, and why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So, as you mentioned, I'm the Public Information Officer for Boulder Fire Rescue with the City of Boulder. I also happen to be the Public Information Officer for our Wildfire Resilience programming in the City of Boulder. So, in the city, we have a cross-departmental effort towards wildfire resilience, including resilient landscaping and safe and effective emergency response and fire-adapted communities. So, a lot of the work that I do is both in the moment as a PIO, responding to fires and responding to incidents for my department, but also in a larger scope, having conversations across departments about communicating wildfire resilience and all the different tasks and work that the city is doing and the community members can do as well.
Love it. And I think public information officer, that's someone who is out there and communicating what's taking place. And I know, understanding before you were a PIO for a bigger organization, not just wildfire, but like what is it that you get out of being able to communicate information to homeowners and to the public? Because look, when you're doing that, like whatever's coming your way, you're the one who has to translate, right? Okay, these experts are saying X, and you got to tell the homeowner in a very simple way. Here's what's taking place. How are you able to do that? And it sounds like you enjoy doing it, but give us a little bit of feedback on how that happens.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about being a PIO is like bridging that gap between the experts and the public. And the public can be our immediate community, it can be a national community, it can be folks that just live further south in the area that are being impacted by things that we do, like prescribed burns, etc. But being able to be in the position of learning from subject matter experts on what fire does, how fire moves, how fire is moving in an incident,
Mm,
as well as outside of topical, it's happening right now experiences is a really fun aspect of my job because I think it involves understanding that the work that's being done regionally is a puzzle, and the information I have is also kind of a puzzle, and I have to figure out what does my community already know and what do they already respond to, and how can I provide the information that they need at the level at which they're going to respond. So is it an emergency? Is it just information I want them to take home and do action on? But it is kind of crafting out what that looks like is one of my favorite parts.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. In with regards to wildfire prevention or wildfire preparation, um, what types of messaging are you guys putting out there for the homeowners? And is it periodic? Is it seasonal? What triggers you to say, "Hey guys, let's pay attention to things that are taking place"? What prevention things do you guys talk about?
Yeah, we have a variety of forms of conversation with our community, from newsletters to postcards to videos to the website. I think it's a lot of things that folks in our area, other governments and other departments are also doing. But I think some of the messaging that we're specifically focused on is a priority of having the community understand it's not an if the next fire shows up, it's a when the next fire shows up. And also doing that in a way that doesn't scare, but makes people more aware of the situation. And so I think predominantly that's one of the main messages that we do, even from our cross departmental space of wildfire. We're doing a lot of work on perimeter mowing, and we're doing prescribed burns, and we are working with our emergency preparedness group to have folks get go bags together and make sure they're signed up for emergency alerts. And those kind of come into play with that similar messaging, right? It's not a, this is not going to happen to you just because it hasn't already happened
Right,
to you.
right.
It's likely going to be coming up.
Now, what concerns you about the perception that homeowners have that they're ready for wildfire when maybe they're not?
That's a really big question. I think the best way I could frame this answer is by also bringing up the concept of like defensible space or defending your home. I see a lot
Yeah,
of homeowners when they first hear that language and they first start to understand that concept, that they're really looking to defend their home, make sure that fire cannot get to it. And while we are trying to protect our assets and protect our property and protect ourselves, I think the misconception that you can entirely protect your home as if it's in isolation, it is not doing well for our community. I think that misconception is allowing people to think, well, I just throw the sprinklers on, or I could just do a little bit of mitigation and my home will be fine. And the reality is, wildfire resilience is a shared responsibility between all of us, both the city and our community. It's a shared responsibility between neighbors, and
mm,
it's a shared responsibility also between families. Families need to understand that they need to think about the opportunity that they may not be able to get to keep their home. And so if they can't keep their physical home, what things can they keep that are home to them, and where can they bring those? And so I think that's probably one of the largest pieces of misinformation that we come across is that concept of defensible space, and is this space, what does that actually mean? Am I defending this space by myself, or the firefighters coming in and defending my space for me? And what does that truly look like when you're in a conflagration situation that we've been increasingly having over the past few years?
wow. And I think something you said just triggered me. Like, um, it's a community issue. You said it's a family issue also, but I think what really hits home for me is like it's a neighborhood issue, right? Like my neighbor, right? Like if and that's the thing I think about. Like if my neighbor's home or his vegetation catches fire, and I may be clean myself, right? I got 0 to 5 cleared off. I've got the IBHS certification, but my neighbor's home ignites, right? And in California, I'm not sure in Boulder how this is, but I'm probably about 15, maybe 20 feet away from him. It's
Mm.
still pretty close from the perspective of like the radiant heat, like is going to ignite my house. Um, but we got to think about like this is not a solo impact of me just taking care of my house, like you just mentioned, we really have to spread the word, especially to our neighbors, to say, "Hey, my friend, let's figure something out, right? Let's really let me educate you more on how vulnerable we really are as a block, as neighbors, and how vulnerable we are to a potential wildfire." So I think you're right.
Mhm.
Let me ask you though, have what's worked? What's worked with that conversation with homeowners and neighbors? Have you seen anything work where you're like, hey, this actually converted a few neighbors to actually do the work?
Yeah, our community risk reduction team within Boulder Fire Rescue really has most of the experience with neighbor to neighbor. They're in the neighborhoods and getting these things done. In my capacity as PIO, I do see this occasionally, but I hear a lot from them. So I want to give them a lot of credit for the
You
information I'm
got
going to
it.
share. But um, some of the some of the main successes that we've had from a community standpoint is community members coming together to tackle the financial barrier of being able to make their space more wildfire resilient. So, a lot of times, community members will not want to buy into the concept of wildfire
Mm,
resilience because
yeah.
maybe your neighbor or your friend has a little bit more money than you do and they can do things to their home that you cannot. But kind of making that effort, an HOA effort or a neighborhood effort, financially, and having a company come in and maybe take out your junipers or scale down some of that vegetation, I think is something that has gotten a lot of people into being involved that maybe haven't before. I also know that in our community, we've done some emergency preparedness drills where our office's disaster management does this incredible thing where they actually send out the alerts to people's phones who signed up, and then they practice leaving their home, gathering their things on their go list and other items, and they
Oh, I
come
love
to a
that.
common space. And a lot of individuals who maybe just getting into figuring out what wildfire resilience is and being prepared to a response will sign up for something like that because they don't know what it's like to get an emergency notification, especially if you're new to moving to Boulder and maybe you're not from a place that has wildfires. So, being able to experience an emergency notification outside of an emergency, but a way that you can just empower yourself to get up and move a little bit quicker, also allows people to sit down for the conversation after the fact and be a little bit more calm about what hardening within your community looks like and how you can partner together as neighbors to not only take care of each other, but also maybe plan projects together that help folks as a whole. So I think it's kind of these personal meet them where they're at experiences that allow more people to kind of poke their head around the corner and say, oh, I'm kind of curious what's going on. We have had a couple instances where folks are very passionate about wildfire resilience, and their neighbors potentially get a little bit annoyed. And so I would say maybe the tactic of like a hard sell on wildfire resilience, especially if you're going to ignore the equity piece and the financial piece, isn't the best way to bring folks in. But I think meeting them where they're at is one of the best ways that I've seen our folks carry that out.
I like that. I really do like the practicing the emergency, the evacuation. I think that's produces muscle memory. You run the play, and the more that you do it, the next time it's go time, you've got a little bit of reps in that.
Mhm.
It's not a big surprise. I really do like that concept. And I think for the listeners, if you have an HOA that you live in, and I'm kind of preaching to myself at this point, we should we should really consider that concept of like, hey, maybe we do a practice run and just give people the perspective of what would happen and have a meeting point, Jamie, like you'd said, and really have the conversation after. Right. I think that's so important, especially understanding that there's multiple evacuation routes, and having those conversations too as to what routes might be available and which ones may not be available and what are we going to do. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
I
um question. Oh, yes. Proceed.
I was just going to note that I think one of another way to really get people is have some candid and fun conversations about this. I know that one of the conversations I often have when I'm out in the community is, have you thought about evacuation and what evacuation looks like for you? And they're like, well, what if the road's closed? And I'm like, well, you live next to open space. And while I don't regularly encourage you to drive on open space, is
Let's
there a
go
way
4
that
by 4 I
is
love
there a
that.
way you can evacuate your home that isn't just on a road? And I think that having those conversations that are a little bit maybe wacky and weird,
Yeah,
but also very much related to public safety and taking care of yourself, that allows people to be like, oh, I'm kind of expanding my mind and how I think about emergency. It's not just a scary thing, it's a creative thing. Like, if I really am in a situation and all my roads are blocked, I'm
yeah,
going to find a way out and I'm going to get out. And
100%.
ultimately, you're going to be allowed to do that because your safety is probably the most important thing.
I love that. That's so good. That's so good, Jamie. Um, Question for you. Are you seeing homeowners are more motivated by safety, or are they more motivated by the insurance premiums and the insurance inability to maybe become insurable? Are you seeing any of those things happen there?
Yes. I want to say that I'm probably not the best person to speak with authority on insurance and how that's taking place within the area that I represent, though I do hear that conversation a lot. I'm hearing our internal stakeholders talk about how we can support community members and having those conversations with their insurance companies. I know that one of the purposes of our Wildfire Ready hub on our website is to provide talking points for homeowners and for insurance companies to understand, we are the government itself is doing work for perimeter mowing and clearing debris and that kind of thing. And that raises our resilience in our wildland urban interface, but also the different things that you can do as a community member. And certainly if you get your detailed home assessment, what that looks like and how that ties in. But from a community, social media, emergency relations perspective, which is a space that I live in mostly, I think right now fear is probably still the biggest motivator for folks, just because we're coming off, just a few years from the Marshall Fire, and
Yeah.
it didn't slow down after the Marshall Fire. So folks in our area are still very, very aware of when they see smoke or when they see like a large plume of dust over the mountains. What is that? They're very vigilant in calling 911 and making sure that they make a report. But I think fear is one of the main catalysts for a lot of the change that we're seeing around the Boulder community. And I don't I don't want to discourage action from a place of, wanting to keep your property and keep your things and keep yourself safe. I think that those are really important um, emotions that allow us to make the right decisions and kind of push us to where we need to go. But I also know that as a communications kind of group within Boulder, we probably need to highlight a little bit more specifically how you can take that fear and you can instead practice, as you were saying, and make yourself feel more empowered and also more okay with what's going to happen, as long as you know that you're going to have the things that you need at the end of the day to carry on, be more sustainable, and then continue to feel comfortable. So making sure folks have these tools in their toolboxes to hopefully change that emotion of fear into, well, I know it's coming and I don't like it, but I think I'll be okay.
Got it. Got it. And it's thank you. And I think about the Marshall Fire, like I think what's ingrained in my mind is the Costco clip where people are
Mm.
in Costco and they're running through the parking lots and like the smoke everywhere, the hillsides are on fire. Like and what's interesting is that when we're all watching that, and people are watching the Palisades fire over in our neighborhood, people look at that and go, "Wow, like I'm so glad that's not my place," right? Or I don't see that happening in our city, and I think it gives us this false sense of security and thinking that, oh, just happens over there, or it happens over there, or only where there's wind, or only where there's a lot of vegetation, and how silly of people to put their homes in the hillside. When the reality is like these wildfires travel so quickly.
Mhm.
And when there is a wind event, you have the airplanes that aren't able to be up in the air because the winds are out of control, right? So now you have like this mother nature of flames is just doing whatever it wants, right? And so it destroys things in its path, and it's crazy. But I think we all need to heed the warnings of what we've been able to see in the past few years, including the Marshall Fire, to really understand that, it's like you'd said earlier, it's a matter of when, it's going to happen again. And that's just part of our new normal, or our new life, in my opinion, of what we have to get used to doing. Um, so Jamie, let me ask you, like, when you guys are giving, or the homeowners are receiving like a mitigation recommendation, right? Um, what do you feel like the biggest sticking point is from them receiving that to actually work being done or recommendations being executed? What's your thought there?
Yeah. I think we've alluded to this a little bit in our conversation so far, but uh, I really think that, for our community, one of the biggest sticking points between getting the recommendations and then implementing the recommendations is probably having the finances to be able to do that. It is Some of the work does cost money, especially if you're going to retrofit a deck or fencing.
Yeah.
Pulling out certain plants can cost a certain amount of money depending on how big they are or where the root system is or how many you even have on your property. And I think that that is one of the considerations that we certainly try to keep in mind in the city of Boulder is who can do what and who can afford what. And so we have a wildfire resilience assistance program to help finance some of those things. But I think another probably more emotional distance between getting that document of tasks and then actually implementing them is also one of the things that you brought up earlier between community and your personal space. When we look at a community as a whole, you may not feel super motivated um, to declutter your home or to work on the vegetation outside your home or to create that 5 foot non-combustible space around
Wow.
your home if your neighbors aren't also doing the same thing. And so having that conversation neighbor to neighbor is really important, as well as having that conversation cross boundaries with like our open space and the folks that back up to our open space. Are we as the city doing and implementing the same recommendations that we provide for our community members? And I see a lot of folks ask that question a lot, and we try our best to make sure that they know that we're working on perimeter mowing and prescribed burning and cleaning up dry fuels and vegetation. So when they also do that work on their home as a continuation of that wildland urban interface, we're all new doing that work together, and we have that shared responsibility.
I love that. That's awesome. So, Jamie, I have, as we wrap up here, I have one more question for you. But before I ask you that question, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners about what you guys are doing over in Boulder, or anything to do with wildfire safety in your neck of the woods?
Mm, I think I just feel very lucky to be a part of the teams that I'm on that is working towards wildfire resilience in the city. And again, I say teams because it is a whole city project. It's not only us as a city government and our departments, but we're also relying on our community members to make some of the right choices and responsible moves. Includes ignition prevention and recreating responsibly, hardening your home, and creating defensible space in your area. So it's I have a very, I think I have a lot of privilege to be able to see things from that 10,000-foot view, and engage with residents when not only are they seeing our regional fire response and our fire crews do amazing when responding to real-time wildfire incidents, but also to our other crews behind the scenes, and to themselves who are putting a lot of effort into wildfire resilience for our community, because it really is not about one of us, it's about all of us.
Boom. And it really does take a community to make this work. Because there's so many moving parts on the back end that
Mhm.
people don't see about, like, you're able to see it, you're actually living it, and you see how everyone is a piece of the puzzle. That's great. Question I have for you is, what gives you the most hope about where wildfire preparedness is heading in your community?
Hmm. I think I am really starting to enjoy and understand on a deeper level the concept of a fire adapted community. And I have been challenged with sharing that information with the public and translating between the subject matter experts and the public about what it means to be a fire adapted community and how our landscape prior to us being on it is fire adapted. And so fire is a huge part of what helps our landscape be as beautiful as it is and helps our ecology and our trees and plants and animals thrive as well as they are, but also poses a significant risk to us. And I think that having an understanding between the balance of those things is something that is becoming more of a conversation piece for folks in the city of Boulder, especially as we think about climate and the way that we want to maintain the areas that we have in our open space, and doing so through prescribed burns and other methods that actually stay true to the way the land has originally handled things, I think is one of the coolest ways in which fire interacts with our community. But I think as you hear me struggle myself as I'm saying it out loud, like that constant conversation of how do you let people know that fire is good, but fire is bad?
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's so good. I think that's been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years before us,
Mm,
and wildfire has just become part of the ecosystem. And at some
mm,
point, it stopped, and now we're getting back to some of those basic fundamentals to really understand that we have to embrace fire, and it's part of what we need to learn to live with. So.
mm.
Very well said, Jamie. Thank you very much for jumping on and being a part of this.
Of course.
We really do appreciate it, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of All Things Wildfire. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to our show and follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things wildfire. And as always, thanks for listening.